There's a place in Tennessee where silence has a sound, where the nights feel heavier, colder, and where people swear they've heard something whisper their name when no one's there. They call it the Bell Witch Haunting. It's not a movie plot. It's not campfire nonsense. It's America's oldest documented ghost story, and it's darker than anything you've heard before. This story goes back more than 200 years, to a quiet farm near Adams, Tennessee. Back then, it was just land, green fields, open skies, and one hard-working family. The Bells. John Bell, the father, a respected man, honest, simple, and proud of the land he worked with his bare hands. He built that home for peace, but the land had other plans. At first, it was small stuff. Footsteps when no one was walking, scratches on the wooden walls, a sound like something was chewing on the bedposts at night. They thought maybe it was rats, maybe the wind, maybe their minds playing tricks after long days in the fields. But then the voices started. It wasn't mumbling. It was clear, human, and it called them by name. Lucy Bell, John's wife, swore she heard a woman humming near her bed when the house was empty. Their children woke up screaming that someone had pulled their blankets away. And when John came to help, something slapped him hard, but no one was there. That's when they knew this wasn't just noise. Something was in that house. Neighbors started hearing it too. Visitors ran out in fear. People said they could hear a woman's voice praying, singing, cursing, even laughing out loud. She spoke clear English, mocked their prayers, and when asked who she was, the voice said, "I am the witch of Kate Batts." No one knows exactly who Kate Batts was, but local legend says she was a strange woman accused of witchcraft, and that she hated John Bell with every drop of her soul. And now, it seemed like she had come back from the grave, back to settle her score. Every night got worse. Doors slammed open. Fists of invisible air hit the children. The family's youngest daughter, Betsy, began to cry in her sleep. Her hair was pulled. She was scratched. And sometimes her voice changed, like someone else was using her mouth to speak. People said they'd never seen a haunting like this. Even church pastors came to pray, and the witch mocked them, laughing through the walls. One pastor tried to bless the house. The witch laughed and said, "You can't bless what's already mine." Soon, everyone in town knew the Bell family wasn't safe, and John Bell, the man who once smiled at every sunrise, now woke up each morning praying it wouldn't be his last. He began losing his strength, falling sick. He said it felt like his throat was closing every time the witch spoke his name. Neighbors would come to check on him, but even they heard it, a woman's voice echoing from thin air. "John Bell will die. I'll be there when he does." The Bell Witch didn't just want to haunt them. She wanted to destroy them slowly, painfully, and in front of everyone. And you know what's wild? Even a U.S. President, Andrew Jackson, claimed he visited the Bell farm and said he'd never seen anything like it in his life. His men refused to stay another night. So what really happened on that Tennessee farm? Was it a curse? A vengeful spirit? Or something far darker, something that pretends to be human, just to feed on fear? Because even today, locals say, when you walk near the old Bell property after midnight, you can still hear her voice, sometimes calling, sometimes laughing, sometimes whispering your name. So before we dive deeper, before we uncover the night she finally took her revenge, remember this: some ghosts fade with time, but some stories, the real ones, don't stay buried. Hook for next episode, because this haunting didn't start with death. It started with a deal, and a whisper John Bell should have never answered. Before the screams, before the whispers, there was peace. The Bell family lived on a stretch of land that looked like a painting: wide fields, tall oak trees, and sunlight that broke through the clouds like a promise. John Bell had worked his whole life for that land. He was respected, a quiet man, but strong, the kind of neighbor everyone trusted. His wife, Lucy Bell, was known for her kindness, always cooking for visitors, always praying before dinner. They had 9 children, and the farm was full of laughter, music, and the sound of life. The people of Adams, Tennessee saw the Bells as blessed, a good family with everything they could ever want. But behind every blessing, there's always a shadow, and that shadow was already watching. The first sign didn't seem like much. John Bell was out walking near the cornfields one evening when he saw something something moving between the trees. He thought it was an animal until it stood up. Tall, dark, human-shaped. He froze. He said it looked like a woman, but her face was hidden. And her eyes, they glowed like coal in the moonlight. He blinked once, and she was gone. John told himself it was just shadows, maybe his eyes playing tricks. But that night, he heard something scratching at the door. He grabbed his gun, opened the door. Nothing, just cold wind. But the next morning, he found footprints. Bare, small, like a woman's. But the strange part, the prints stopped right in the middle of the yard, as if whoever made them just disappeared into thin air. That was the beginning. Soon, small things began to shift around the house. A chair moved on its own. A door opened quietly in the middle of the night. Lucy's sewing basket spilled over when no one touched it. They tried to laugh it off. Tennessee wind, John said. But the wind doesn't call your name. Betsy, the youngest daughter, was the first to hear the whisper. A woman's voice. Soft, slow, almost kind. It said, "Hello, Betsy." She thought it was her mother, until she turned around and saw no one there. Lucy thought her daughter was dreaming, but then it happened again, and again, every night, same voice. Sometimes singing, sometimes crying, sometimes whispering in another language. That's when fear started creeping in, and the family, the same family that once prayed together before every meal, stopped praying out loud, because every time they said amen, a whisper answered back. Word spread fast in Adams. Neighbors came to listen. Some heard nothing. Others left pale, trembling, refusing to speak about what they'd witnessed. One man said he heard a voice say, "John Bell is cursed." And the next morning, his horse refused to ride past the Bell farm. John began keeping a journal. Each night, he wrote what they heard: knocks, steps, whispers, even laughter. The entries got darker every week, until one night, he wrote just 3 words. "She touched me." No one knows what really happened that night, but John Bell changed after it. He stopped smiling, stopped talking much, and his eyes, people said he looked like he was already seeing something the rest of them couldn't. Lucy tried to stay strong. She believed faith would protect them, but even she started breaking when the family's animals began dying. Cows would be found in the fields, their eyes wide open. No sign of struggle, no wounds, just fear frozen on their faces. And then came the night the voice spoke to all of them. Loud, clear, angry. It said, "I am the spirit of Kate Batts. I will not rest until John Bell is gone." That was it. The moment everything changed. The witch had a name, and the Bell family had a death sentence. From that night on, there was no more peace. The farm that once bloomed with laughter and life turned into a living nightmare. And the witch, she was just getting started. Because the Bell Witch wasn't there just to haunt them. She wanted something much bigger, and her next move would turn the whole town into believers. After that night, the Bell farm was never silent again. The air itself felt heavy, like the land was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. And every night, something did. The knocks came first, always in 3s, always after midnight. Then the voice, louder, bolder, mocking. "John Bell, you can't hide from me." Neighbors began to hear it too. They'd ride past the Bell home and swear they heard a woman screaming from the walls. Some said they saw candles burning in the windows, even when the family was asleep. Lucy Bell tried to stay calm. She prayed every night, sometimes until her voice cracked. But the witch mocked her prayers. Sometimes she'd repeat every word Lucy said, word for word, but in a cold, hateful tone. "Our Father, who art in heaven. Our Father, who art in hell." And then came the screams. The Bell children would wake up with bruises, their hair pulled, their blankets ripped away. Betsy, the youngest, became the witch's favorite target. She'd wake up gasping, saying someone was choking her in her sleep. And when the family rushed to help, her body would lift off the bed, as if an invisible hand was holding her up. The witch would laugh, a deep, twisted laugh that didn't sound human. And sometimes she'd whisper through the walls, "You can't save her, John. You can't save anyone." By 1818, the whole town of Adams knew something was wrong. People stopped visiting. Even the bravest refused to stay past sundown. But one man didn't believe the stories. A preacher named James Johnston. He said there's no ghost stronger than faith. So he stayed one night at the Bell house. They prayed together before bed. Everything was calm for a while. Then, around midnight, James felt a slap across his face, hard enough to knock him from his chair. He heard a voice whisper, "Now, preacher, do you believe?" The next morning, he left the Bell home and told everyone in town, "It's real. May God protect whoever lives in that house." The witch began to speak more clearly. She'd talk for hours, mocking the family, reciting sermons, even gossiping about the neighbors. Sometimes she'd sing hymns, perfectly. Other times, she'd scream in rage until the windows shook. People came from miles away just to hear her voice. Some brought gifts, others brought crosses, but no one could make her stop. John Bell's health started collapsing. He'd wake up trembling, his face pale, his hands shaking. He said he could feel her breath on his neck every night. Food began to taste bitter. His eyesight started fading. And the witch, she told him exactly why. "You stole from me, John Bell. You took what was mine. And now, I'll take you." No one knew what she meant. But whatever it was, John didn't deny it. He just stopped talking. The family's friends tried to help. One man brought a Bible and laid it on the table. But the witch's voice came from right above it. "Nice book. Shame it won't save you." The haunting grew stronger every week. Objects flew across the room. The children fainted. Animals screamed for no reason. And one night, the witch began laughing for hours. Lucy begged her to stop. But the witch said, "I'll stop when he's gone." Then, as if things couldn't get worse, she began predicting events before they happened. A neighbor's child would fall ill, she'd whisper it the night before. A storm would hit the town, she'd sing about it the day earlier. And every time, she was right. That's when people stopped calling it a haunting. They started calling it a curse. John Bell was now too weak to work. He'd sit near the fireplace, staring into the flames for hours, sometimes mumbling to himself, sometimes whispering back to something no one else could see. Lucy said his eyes looked hollow, like he was already halfway gone. And the witch, she enjoyed it. "Soon, John, very soon," she'd whisper every night. The Bell witch had control now, over the house, over their minds, over their faith, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop her. But just when everyone thought it couldn't get worse, the witch decided to show them what true power looks like. Because the next time her voice filled the Bell home, someone wouldn't make it out alive. They say the witch's final act wasn't haunting. It was murder, and what happened next would shock the entire country and leave behind one of the most terrifying mysteries in American history. By the winter of 1820, the Bell home didn't sound like a home anymore. The laughter was gone, the hymns, the prayers all replaced by the sound of whispers and sickness. John Bell, once the strongest man in Adams, Tennessee, could barely stand on his own. His face was pale, his breath uneven, and his eyes looked like they were always focused on something just beyond this world. The witch had done her work slowly, patiently. Every curse, every sleepless night had taken something from him. Lucy, his wife, never left his side. She read scripture to him every evening, hoping maybe the words would drive the darkness away. But each time she reached the word "Amen," the witch whispered it back softly, mockingly. "Amen." Neighbors stopped visiting. Even the preachers wouldn't stay after sundown. Everyone said the same thing. The Bell farm didn't feel alive anymore. It felt like a graveyard that hadn't realized it was dead. John's illness grew worse. His tongue would twist mid-sentence. His hands would shake like he was freezing, even when the fire burned bright. At night, he'd wake up choking, grabbing at his throat as if invisible hands were closing around it. Sometimes, Lucy swore she could see finger marks appear on his neck, fresh and red, as he gasped for air. The witch's voice grew stronger every day, no longer hiding, no longer whispering. She spoke clear, proud, cruel. "You can't stop me, John. Every breath you take belongs to me now." Lucy prepared medicine each morning, a small vial of tonic made by the local doctor. She believed it was the only thing keeping him alive. But one morning, the bottle was gone. She searched every corner, the cupboards, the bedside table, the wooden shelf near the fire. Nothing. And then, a voice came from behind her. "Looking for this?" Lucy turned and saw a small glass bottle sitting on the floor. The liquid inside wasn't clear anymore. It was thick, black, and it bubbled as if something inside it was alive. The witch laughed. "John won't need his medicine today. He's already tasted mine." Moments later, a scream tore through the house. John Bell's. Lucy ran to his room, and what she saw would haunt her forever. John was on the floor, his face twisted, his eyes rolled white. Foam spilled from his mouth as his body shook violently. She tried to hold him, praying, crying, begging God to save him. But the witch's laughter filled the room. "He's mine. I told you, he's mine." The children screamed. The dogs howled outside. And as John Bell took his last breath, the fire in the hearth went out by itself, leaving the family in total darkness. The witch's voice spoke one last time. "He's gone. The man who wronged me is gone." Then silence. For the first time in years. No footsteps, no laughter, no whispers, just the quiet sound of snow falling against the windows. 3 days later, they buried John Bell in the small family graveyard behind the farm. The entire town came. People said the ground trembled when the coffin was lowered. And just as the preacher began his final prayer, they heard it, a woman's voice clear as day, laughing from the woods. "Goodbye, John Bell." Lucy stood frozen, clutching her children. Tears ran down her face, but deep down, she knew it wasn't over, because curses don't end with death. They feed on memory. For weeks after the funeral, the Bell house stayed quiet, almost peaceful. But sometimes, at night, Lucy would hear something move through the halls. A whisper too soft to understand. A soft hand brushing across her shoulder. A voice saying, "Sleep well, Lucy. You'll join him soon." People in Adams avoided the Bell farm entirely. Even animals refused to go near it. The grass wouldn't grow near John's grave. And every time someone passed by, they swore they heard footsteps following them, even when they were alone. Years later, Lucy Bell told her children something strange. She said that before John died, he confessed to her about a land dispute, a deal gone wrong, with a woman named Kate Batts. Some say that was the witch's origin, a spirit born from betrayal, from greed, from vengeance that refused to rest. Years passed after John Bell's death. The farm stood silent. The whispers stopped. The Bell family tried to rebuild their lives. But silence can be dangerous, because sometimes silence means the darkness is waiting. By 1828, Betsy Bell had grown into a quiet, lonely woman. She rarely spoke of the witch, but every night she'd check her window twice and light a candle near her bed, just in case something came back. For years, it didn't. And then one night it did. The air inside her room grew heavy, like someone invisible had just stepped in. The candle flame froze. No flicker, no movement. And the temperature dropped so suddenly that her breath turned white. Then, a voice, soft, female, spoke from the darkness. "Betsy, did you miss me?" Her blood ran cold. She couldn't move. The witch was back. And this time, she wasn't whispering from the shadows. The sound came from inside the room. From everywhere. "You've lived too long without me," the voice said. "I told you I'd return in 7 years." Betsy screamed, but her voice didn't reach beyond the walls. Neighbors said they heard nothing that night, only the wind. But Betsy swore the witch stayed till dawn, mocking her, laughing, repeating the same line again and again. "Did you really think I was gone?" The witch's promise had been true. Before John Bell's death, she'd said she'd return in 7 years. And exactly 7 years later she did. But this time, she didn't come for revenge. She came to remind everyone she was still there. She tormented the Bell children's children. Doors would slam open by themselves. Furniture moved in the night. Visitors said they heard a woman humming lullabies near the fireplace, even though no one lived there anymore. A traveler once stayed overnight in the abandoned Bell cabin. In the morning, he ran out screaming, his hair white, his voice shaking, saying he woke to see a pale woman floating above him, her face covered in a black veil. When people asked what she said, he whispered, "She told me to tell the Bells. She's still watching." For years, reports continued. Strange voices in the woods, footsteps in empty rooms, people who dared to spend a night near the Bell Witch Cave, a dark hollow on the edge of the old Bell property. said they heard laughter echoing from deep inside. One man said he threw a stone into the cave and heard it hit something soft. Then a voice whispered right behind him, "You shouldn't have done that." He never spoke again. By the late 1800s, the story of the Bell Witch had become legend across Tennessee. Parents told it to their kids to scare them. Travelers used it to warn strangers. But for the Bell family, it wasn't a story. It was bloodline, a curse that never died. Even after the last of the Bells moved away, people said the spirit followed them, appearing in dreams, murmuring in voices they couldn't explain, and always whispering one name, John Bell. In 1937, a local schoolteacher visited the old Bell property. He wanted to write a book to separate the truth from the legend. He spent the night near the Bell Witch Cave, and by morning, he was gone. Searchers found his notebook, every page filled with the same phrase, written over and over, "She's real, she's angry, she's still here." Decades later, people still visit the Bell Witch Cave. Tourists, ghost hunters, skeptics. Some say nothing happens. Others say too much. One group reported hearing a child's voice whisper, "Mommy, she's coming." Seconds later, their flashlight exploded, and a black shadow moved across the cave wall. Even today, locals warn visitors not to mock her name. Don't say Bell Witch 3 times inside the cave. Don't take a stone from the site. And don't go in after midnight, because people who do don't always come back the same. In 1998, a paranormal team recorded strange EVPs inside the cave. When they played back the audio, they heard a woman's voice, clear, calm, southern accent, say, "You can hear me, but you'll never see me." That same night, one of their cameras caught something even stranger. A faint figure standing at the cave entrance. Long dress, pale hands, and what looked like a smile. But the smile wasn't human. Today, people still travel to Adams, Tennessee, hoping to meet the Bell Witch, the ghost that refuses to die. But the locals know better. They say she's not a story, not a ghost, not a myth. She's a memory. And memories don't stay buried. Membu, what if I told you? The Bell Witch never really stopped haunting. Because even today, there are new witnesses and real recordings that might prove she's still here 2 centuries later, and the Bell Witch is still whispering. Not in the Bell House that's long gone, but in the hills, the woods, the caves around Adams, Tennessee. People still say they hear her. A woman's voice, faint but sharp, sometimes laughing, sometimes calling your name. It's easy to think it's all legend, a small-town ghost story that got too big. But in the age of technology, when cameras see everything and recorders catch what ears can't, something strange keeps showing up. EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, unexplained whispers caught in thin air. In 2006, a paranormal team from Nashville spent a night inside the Bell Witch Cave. They left 3 cameras, 5 audio recorders, and thermal sensors. At exactly 3:01 a.m., one of the cameras caught movement, a mist forming in the shape of a woman's figure near the cave wall. And in the audio log, a voice said, "Don't look at me." When they tried to play the footage the next day, the file was corrupted. Every single recording from that moment gone, except one, a single 5-second clip of breathing right next to the mic. People say that's her, Kate Batts, the Bell Witch, still guarding the land she cursed. But she doesn't just stay in Tennessee anymore. Reports of Bell Witch activity have surfaced all across the U.S. A woman in Ohio said she heard the same whisper while cleaning an antique dresser, a piece that originally came from the Bell property. A teenager in Missouri claimed to wake up at 3:15 every night to knocking on his window. No one there, but muddy handprints left on the glass. And in 2015, a family in Kentucky uploaded a video of strange knocking sounds inside their home. At one point, a voice whispered, "I warned you about the bells." Experts say it's just imagination that people want to believe. But believers say, this is how the Bell Witch works. She doesn't need to show herself anymore. She's in the stories. She's in the fear. She's in the retelling. Every time someone says her name, she listens. Even skeptics admit one thing. The land where the Bell farm once stood feels wrong. Animals avoid it. Compass needles spin. And phones lose signal when you get too close to the cave. Locals still say the same line they've said for 200 years. You can visit Adams, but don't stay past midnight, because that's when the air changes. That's when you hear the hum. And if you're unlucky enough, you'll hear a woman's voice say your name and laugh. But here's the thing that no one talks about. The bell witch promised she'd come back. Again and again. Each time stronger. Each time closer. Some believe she's no longer a ghost. That she's something else now. A force tied to human fear itself. Because maybe, after 200 years of being remembered, talked about, searched for, and feared, the bell witch has become exactly what she always wanted. Immortal. So if you ever visit Tennessee, and you find yourself near Adams, just remember, the bell witch doesn't haunt the dead. She haunts the curious. And if you're listening right now, wondering if she's real, maybe she's listening too. The bell witch, America's oldest haunting. Some stories never die. If you ever find yourself alone at night and hear a woman whisper your name, just remember, some legends are never just legends. Subscribe before she finds you first.